The Madman! Welcome to new Scholomance Academy cards, and today we start off with one that I had very briefly covered in a previous video, but it was only briefly covered because I didn't necessarily know it was real. Now that we know it's real, it is the most overpowered card to ever grace Hearthstone? Secret Passage. Rogue 1-mana spell. Replace your hand with 5 cards from your deck. Swap back next turn. Not only am I going to say it's just blatantly really good, obviously you put this into your tempo rogue. It's like Solarium, except you get a little bit less than twice the amount of cards and you don't discard them, you put them back in your deck. It's not quite as blatant as just a 1-mana draw 5, which obviously when you just say it out loud sounds ridiculous, but in a lot of situations, it's as good as 1-mana draw 5. You know, it has a slight downside to it in that you can't use your old hand to accompany these cards. You probably play Secret Passage first, so you're just relying on the top 5 cards of your deck, but you're getting 5 cards. That's a lot of cards. It's 1-mana draw 5! It's 1-mana draw 5! The sky is falling! Like, I'm actually around that level right now. It's possible this card is so good that it weakens every other card in the set just because this card can only be played in Rogue, and it makes Rogue significantly better than all the other classes. Like, that's how strong I think Secret Passage is. Yeah, Secret Passage, not so secretly OP. The only question I have about this card so far is what happens when you Secret Passage into Secret Passage. Like, is that good for you or is that bad for you? I'm not sure yet. Probably has to actually get physically tested. Card interaction unknown. Jandis Barov, 5-mana Mage Rogue dual class card. It's a 2/1. Battlecry, summon 2 random 5-cost minions, secretly pick one that dies when it takes damage. Your opponent is probably going to know that you picked the weaker one to die when it takes damage, but therein lies the mind game. Obviously you want your stronger card to stay around, but maybe you secretly pick the stronger card to die when it takes damage so that the opponent wastes 1 damage on the weaker card expecting it to die, but then surprise, it doesn't die! And then they've like wasted a resource to deal 1 damage. If you just count the 2 random 5-cost minions as 2 4/4s, which is the average, and of course 1 dies in 1 damage, so you count 1 as a 4/4, and 1 as a 4/1, and 1 as a 2/1, that's 10-6 in total stats, which is way better than Giggling Inventor, which was a card that was nerfed at 5 mana because she provided too many stats for the mana value. Jandis Barov is probably not going to get the Giggling Inventor treatment because she can only be run in Mage and Rogue, but that's a really strong card in Mage and Rogue. You would probably play her in any tempo rogue, but stating that she's a 10-6 I think undersells her card because 1, the opponent doesn't necessarily know which one dies in 1 health. 2, that's ignoring the goodness of the 5-cost that comes with it. The better 5-cost minion will probably not be a 4/4, and the worst 5-cost minion might be the one that brings down the average, but then you just set the health to 1. Also, there could be death rattles, there could be reborn, there could be special abilities that go off. Jandis Barov is just a lot of value in 1 card. Over in Mage Shaman land, we have Raz Frostwhisper. By the way, you can generate a Raz Frostwhisper with a Jandis, and this is probably one of the more insane cards to generate. 5-mana 3/6, at the end of your turn, deal 1 damage to all enemies, improved by spell damage. So this is basically Despicable Dreadlord, except instead of a 4/5, it's a 3/6. And it can actually get better than Despicable Dreadlord because it's improved by spell damage. Also, the stat line is better than Despicable Dreadlord because you want your big impact effects to have high health. So 3/6 stat line is better than a 4/5. Really good card, especially if there's cheap ways to get spell damage. For Shaman, you have the spell damage totem. For Mage, Lab Partner, 1-mana, 1/3, spell damage +1! So obviously 1-mana, 1/3 is a good stat line. Spell damage +1, just throw that right on there, why don't you? That's a nice card that's going to just boost Mage's early gameplay. So welcome back, Mage? Welcome back, Tempo Mage? Fun fact, Tempo Mage, way back in the day, actually ran Dire Mole. Groundskeeper, a dual class card for Druid and Shaman, 4 mana, 4, 5. Okay, Yeti stats already. Cool. Taunt. Okay. Battle Cry, if you're holding a spell that costs 5 or more, restore 5 health. Wow! All in all, a very solid anti-aggro card. Surprisingly, as good as this card is, not entirely sure if it's actually going to see play because Druids do have that Beetle for 2 mana, which if you're holding a spell that costs 5 or more, you're gaining 5 armor already. So a 2 mana 2/3 doesn't see play with the gain 5. Maybe the Groundskeeper is still not good enough then. However, uniquely, the Groundskeeper can target minions, and that's a much better use for restoring health than your own health generally. Also, in Druid Shaman, dual class card, we have Runic Carvings. 6 mana, choose 1, summon 4 2/2 Treant Totems. Yes, those are cards that are both Treants and Totems. Or Overload, 2 to summon them with Rush. You either get 4 2/2s, 8/8 value for 6 mana, or for 8 mana, you can deal 8 damage spread out in chunks of 2. Not entirely sure if it will be powerful enough to see any play. Like the base power level is The main problem with Runic Carvings is it's severely getting overshadowed by Glowfly Swarm. And of course, when you're summoning that many 2/2s already, not sure you want to summon even more 2/2s. And the problem on the Shaman side is you're playing Shaman, but certainly at the very least a solid card. In Druid Hunterland, for 1 mana, it's adorable Infestation. Give a minion +1/+1, summon a 1/1 cub, add a cub to your hand. So the stuff that goes on the board would be 2/2 worth of stats for 1 mana. Some of the stats are fast because it's a buff. And on top of that, you're getting a cub to your hand, which is a 1/1. So 1 mana 2/2, get a 1/1 in your hand, and it costs 1 to play. It's kind of nice, but at the same time, there's one big downside to this card. There must be a minion in play to actually play it, since the card does say give a minion +1/+1, so it's targeted on a minion in order to do everything. And the problem is, on turn 1, you will probably not have a minion that you can buff with Adorable Infestation, which lowers the card rating by quite a bit because this is exactly the type of card you want to play on an early game card. This card is especially good on early game 1/3s that have good effects, like the Sharpshooter, for example, from Hunter. The problem is Adorable Infestation has to go with a minion. Well, that's not that hard, especially for 1 mana. It is a ding on the card as well, just because it has that prerequisite. Devout Pupil. Paladin and Priest dual class card, 6 mana 4/5 Divine Shield Taunt. Costs 1 less for each spell you've cast on friendly characters this game. With Devout Pupil as well as other cards, I think I can say very clearly that this set in particular, Scholomance Academy, is distinctly unashamed about power creeping old cards because this is Sunwalker, except it can cost less. Notably when you're playing Paladin and Librams. Libram of Wisdom is a Libram that often gets played a lot, and it'll often cost 0. So your Devout Pupil, therefore, can often cost 0, and I think this is a really clever way to boost the Libram Paladin type deck without introducing any more Libram cards. So Devout Pupil certainly goes into that deck, and will often be maybe a 2 mana 4/5 Taunt Divine Shield, maybe even a 0 mana Divine Shield Taunt, which is a really big reason to play that deck. For Priest, it is more difficult to cast spells on friendly characters, but it does kind of exist. But really, I think this is one of those cards that's just far better for Paladin than Priest, because Paladins can recast Libram of Wisdom so easily, and they have another cheap card, Hand of a Doll, which is in basically any deck that would run Devout Pupil. And that card relates to Gift of Luminance, a Paladin Priest dual class card, 3 mana, give a minion Divine Shield, then summon a 1/1 copy of it. So certainly a spell that's cast on a minion. You would ideally like to put this on a minion with special abilities, like Death Rattle, or Reborn, or a constant ability, because a 1/1 copy of it is much better if it actually has text on it. Notably good on Convincing Infiltrator. I think there are less obvious targets on Paladin that are good. This card does grant 2 Divine Shields, 1 on the minion and 1 on the 1/1 copy, so not very exciting, but if you manage to get any value out of the minion that you put Divine Shield on, like it's a very valuable minion to have 1/1 copy of, that's where you skyrocket Luminance in value. I think right now it's probably not quite impactful enough to make it in a deck. So the trick is finding that card to Gift of Luminance. Next up, we have a Shaman Legendary. That's quite spicy. Instructor Fireheart, 3 mana, 3/3. Battlecry, discover a spell that costs 1 or more. If you play it this turn, repeat this effect. She's insane! Oh my god! You play it near the late game, and then you could just sling a bunch of spells. Lightning Bolt, Lightning Bolt, Lightning Bolt. But yeah, great value if you just play her and, you know, don't even do anything else. But really, really great value if you just play her and then actually cast a spell and get another spell. And really, really good value if you cast at least 2 spells off of her. Your only weakness will be the rope. I don't think she's quite good enough to run Dwarven Archaeologist with, but there might be some good combo where you go Archaeologist, Archaeologist, Fireheart, and then go off. That will be something. If you're playing a Shaman deck, you should put Fireheart into your deck. She's really, really good. And probably the only reason why she was allowed to be put in like this is because Shaman's in a meh spot right now. But huge Chase Shaman Legendary card here. And it's a tale of 2 classes. Because for every Fireheart, you must have a Tyrellian, the Tenured. Paladin 8 mana, 3/12, rush. Whenever this attacks the minion, set the defender's attack and health to 3. Well, what's there to say? It's an 8 mana, 3/9 basically that kills a guy. 8 mana, 3/9 kill a guy is not very good. That's about all there is to say. Way too slow to play in any deck that isn't Control Paladin, and Control Paladin probably has better options than Tyrellian, the Tenured, sadly. The only good thing about this card is the flavor is good. That Tenured Professors just don't necessarily have to try that hard. They just get paid anyways. Keymaster Alabaster. 7 mana, 6/8. Whenever your opponent draws a card, add a copy to your hand that costs 1. You're always guaranteed to get a card to your hand that costs 1, because your opponent will draw a card. The only downside is people correctly say it's 7 mana, 6/8, do nothing. But really, it's like 7 mana, 6/8, draw a card at the very least. I think that this card will see a lot of play in control decks, especially if the meta is more inclined towards control versus control. That's about all there is to say about it. If the meta's too fast, you probably don't slide Keymaster Alabaster in. Yo, 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 yo. Keymaster Alabaster, value master. Only a disaster if the meta is faster. Yo. And finally, we have Vectus. Neutral legendary 5 mana 4/4. Battlecry. Summon 2 1/1 whelps. Each gains a death rattle from your minions that died this game. And this is 5 mana for 6/6, which is already, you know, solid. But especially good if you have had minions that died with death rattle. You should probably put this card into your deck, which has death rattle minions. But you probably shouldn't put this into your deck with Resurrect because you don't want your 1/1 whelps to get resurrected. So we're talking Kartut Defender mainly, which, you know, when it dies, it's actually going to be 2 deaths. So when you play Vectus, you'll actually, if you've just played 1 Kartut Defender, you'll get both whelps with, you know, Kartut Defender's death rattle of restore health. Not bad. There's Convincing Infiltrator. Death rattle anything could be possible. We'll have to see the set, if there are many death rattles, and then maybe this card is good enough to push a death rattle related theme. But yeah, great value even if you run Loot Hoarders, in which case it's a 5 mana 6/6 draw 2 cards. The fact that that's just a neutral package means that Vectus, you know, with very minimal death rattle support, could just see play in quite a lot of decks. So that was a lot of cards revealed, but that's not all, because alongside this day, also the huge Demon Hunter Warlock package of soul fragments got introduced. So make sure to look into that one.